This meeting has been held remotely and also in person and will be filmed and recorded for live and subsequent broadcast available through the Council's website. The Council is a data controller under the General Data Protection Act and Data Protection Act of 2018. We broadcast and record Council meetings to fulfil our public task obligation to enable members of the public to observe the democratic process. Data collected during this process will be retained in accordance with the Council's published policies available through the Council's website. Members of the Council are reminded that they should follow the Council's established meetings protocols, including the use of the chat facility, and that comments made in the chat facility are visible to participants in the meeting, which may include members of the public who have also received invites. So with that, can I move along to apologies, declarations of interest and roll count?
We have no apologies for absence for this part of the meeting. Convener will now move to an attendance roll call before proceeding to declarations of interest. The following members please indicate if they're present at the meeting either in person or remotely. Councillor Armstrong.
Present in the chamber.
Councillor Brennan.
Present in the chamber.
Councillor Clougherty.
Present in the chamber.
Councillor Hellier.
Present in the chamber.
Councillor Maguire.
Present.
Councillor McVeigh.
In chamber.
Councillor Nelson.
In chamber.
Councillor Quinn.
Present remotely.
Councillor Reynolds.
Present remotely.
Councillor Robertson.
Present in the chamber, and I don't think any of our microphones are working.
No.
Yeah.
Councillor Wilson.
Present remotely.
David.
Reverend Spark.
Present in chamber.
Mr Doherty.
Present in chamber.
Reverend Donaldson.
Present remotely.
Fiona MacDonald. And Paula McEwen.
Present remotely.
Are there any declarations of interest?
Thanks. As Elizabeth says, the microphones don't appear to be working, so I can ask everybody to bear with me. And usually I would look to see if your light is on to talk, but if you can just indicate with your hand, it'd be much appreciated. I'll still be able to see those online, and can ask people who are making comments or questions if they can try and do it as clearly and as loudly as possible to enable everybody who's at the meeting the ability to hear. And with that, can I move along to agenda item number 8, which is the Education Revenue Update Report, and I'll ask Mary to speak to the meeting. Mary.
Thanks, Convener. Yes, this is a regular revenue report for the education side of the committee, and the current projection is an underspend of £16,000. The main variances are outlined in the report at sections 1.3, 3.3 and Appendix 3. We've also got an update of the committee's earmark reserves at section 3.4 and Appendix 4. Committee are asked to note the current projected underspend. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Mary. I'll open up to questions. I'm looking in the chamber first of all. Is there any questions for anybody in the chamber? Ennis, you're the only person with a light on. Thank you. No one in the chamber. Can I ask, is there anybody online a question on the revenue budget? Can't see anybody online. Can I ask members to approve the paper? Thank you. Can we move to agenda item number 9, which is the capital programme report? Can I ask Eddie to introduce that? Eddie.
Yeah, thanks, Convener. This is a regular capital programme report. There isn't actually too much change from the report to the last committee, because much of the activity has been carried out over the school summer holiday periods in terms of the life cycle programmes. So the Council's own life cycle programme and that of the PPP schools have been completed for the financial year as we currently are, and we're very much in the process of planning for the next financial year's projects and expenditure. There's some other activity planned against the active panel refresh in the coming summer, and other interventions that will align with our net zero programme. Most of the information is summarised in the appendices, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Eddie. I'll open up for questions first of all. I'll come to the chamber first. I've got a question from Pam. Pam?
Oh, I beg your pardon, sorry. Thanks, convener. Yes, just a small question about St Michael's Primary School. The RAC issue is not on the life cycle works, and I'm just wondering if it should be. I mean, it may be that that's inappropriate, but maybe, I mean, it's not, I just noticed it's not there, so whether it should be. Thank you.
No. Eddie?
Yeah, for you, convener. It's something we bring periodically to the committee within this report. But as we're not actually planning any works at the moment, we're just monitoring it, and we're looking at remediation options at the moment. When we have the remediation options clarified and when we have a direction, we will bring that back as part of the reporting under the life cycle programme. What I would note is through the kind of storm damage that we had from the recent storm, we have got a roof replacement planned for St Michael's, and that's happening very shortly. That will address part of the RAC there, and we'll remove that at the same time, but we'll provide that update at the next capital programme progress report. But the wider approach to St Michael's will depend on the remediation strategies, and that's something we're working up just now.
Okay, thank you, Eddie.
Thanks, Eddie. Thanks very much, convener.
I'll open up to any other questions. Can't see anybody in the room. Can't see anybody online. Can we agree the report? Can we move to agenda item number 10, which is Education and Communities Improvement Plan Performance Report? Ruth?
So this is the second performance report on year 2 of the committee plan, and it covers the reporting period September 2024 to January 2025. And the committee should know that the refresh will be brought to the next May committee. So if I take you to section 3.6 of the actions, and that outlines all the sub actions which are now complete. A lot of things now have been undertaken. So some very good news there. 3.7 outlines where there's been slippage. So the library's use of data to inform health and wellbeing, that was something the previous head of libraries had started with Slick just before she left. Whilst we've got quantitative data that's stored with the, whilst we've got qualitative data, it's stored with the quantitative data. The service review of the Community Grants Fund. This was written obviously before the election members briefing on the 19th of February, but that's work that we're still undertaking to look at the possibilities there. And the letter of the briefing gave us a steer as to what they would like to see. And the desktop exercise has been completed for the breakfast clubs, and we're looking at perhaps ceasing the work on that there just now to see what we might be doing in the future. So officers know the different provisions that the rating provision, but actually we won't be taking that forward until perhaps 25-26. There's other reasons why we're doing that, because of the early adopter funding, but also potential budgetary decisions as well. So that's so that we've stopped our work on the breakfast club. KPIs and performance, that's in 3.8. So you'll see what we're looking at is the average tariff scores and also the achievement of CFE levels in literacy and numeracy for P117s. Perhaps noticeable and disappointing is the decreasing overall satisfaction rates with schools, libraries and leisure facilities. It's across the board. The local government benchmarking framework uses the Scottish Household Survey as its benchmarking. when we look at other benchmarks, when we look at other surveys, perhaps we will see that in the satisfaction rates of our schools. Every school that's inspected has a parental questionnaire, and they tend to come out very, very, very positive. But the problem with that, using any of that data, is there's no national benchmarking. So we can't compare ourselves against others. So it's disappointing to see that that the satisfaction rate has decreased, and we will absolutely keep an eye on that data as well as other data. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Ruth. I'll open up to questions. I'm looking in the room first of all. Can't see in the room. I'll go to Councillor Wilson first and then to Paula McEwen. David.
Yeah, good afternoon, convener. Thank you. I go to big page 11, and the first item on that page, development of Gaelic GME secondary provision. We're struggling to get a teacher. This provision has really taken off. Is it not about time we abandon the whole idea of this specific Gaelic facility at Inverclyde Academy?
David, I take your point. I do know that there's a point in the next paper at the update that is specifically on the Gaelic thing that I know Michael's got the next paper. I'm quite happy to Ruth to take it just now if you want.
No, I'm happy to wait till then, convener.
Ruth.
Take it now.
Take it. Sorry.
So we always knew it would be difficult to recruit a Gaelic teacher. However, no, as also, it's not an option for us to abandon this, because we need to look at the progression for Gaelic learners, and we need to make sure that we can ensure that if we have a Gaelic primary provision, that we as an authority can offer progression for secondary. So what I would say is that it's not an option for us not to consider this, because we do know that the Glasgow Gaelic School do not have places.
Convener, could I have a supplementary?
Yes, certainly, David.
You mentioned the Glasgow Gaelic School, which in terms of higher results is in the top 10 schools in the whole, state schools in the whole country. Surely we don't have a secondary anywhere near that sort of level. Should we not at all costs be continue to send our secondary pupils to the Glasgow Gaelic School?
I think we've taken a decision. David, I think as a council, we've already taken that decision. I'll let the corporate director comment, but we as a council have taken that decision.
Yes, so we as a council have taken the decision. Pupils are placing requests to the Glasgow Gaelic School if they so wish to do so. What I would say about the quality of education in Inverclyde is that they are the same children. They will get a very good education, and whichever school they attend.
And
Thank you,
David, it might be worth your while knowing that just now Renfrew Council have got their queries on about the amount of money it's costing them to send children both to the Glasgow Gaelic School and even to provision within Inverclyde. So that there is certainly budget pressures that we as a council have tried to deal with through our decision to accept Gaelic medium education both at Windhill Primary and to try and establish a new unit at Inverclyde Academy. But as I said, there is a bit on an outstanding remit that's going to come up at the next agenda item that again will allow Michael to maybe go into that a wee bit further if necessary.
Thank you, convener.
Can I bring Paula in? Paula?
Thanks, convener. Sorry, it's on the percentage of adults satisfied with local schools, and really a question around what that is based on. We have HMI reports, we have our own validated self-evaluation. So what are those adults basing that opinion on? But also, do we know if they have links to schools? Are they parents, employees, or is it a gut feeling that it's based on? Thank you.
So it's the Scottish Household Survey, which is from my telephone. People can opt not to answer the question if they feel they haven't an opinion, but there is no reason, if you ask a question about the perception of local schools, you do not have to have a child in a local school to answer that question. So it is based on just random samples of local people. So that's why we are slightly disappointed to see it there, because it doesn't match the other data we would have, parent involvement in education survey, and also the HMI surveys as well. Now, it could be that it's a small sample size, and actually statistically it could change again. I simply don't know the answer to that question, but it's one we do need to look at. We need to, if people are not happy with local schools, we need to take that on board. However, other information tells us that people are very, very happy with the local schools. So we just need to keep a watchful eye on it.
No, it's just for you, Kavina, nothing that Ruth was. I've gone down the rabbit hole looking into this, and certainly if you look at the last 4 or 5 inspections we've had, all that information is in the public domain. If you go on the Education Scotland website, look at the portal for each of the schools, you can see what's called the additional information, which gives you the full questionnaire feedback for each inspection. The same question is asked during that survey, percentage in response to how satisfied parents are with a particular school is significantly higher than the average here. What I would say is the overall Scottish average has been declining for a number of years if you look at the LGBF website. And if you then also look, I've looked further into our own peer reviews, which have been happening for the last 2 years, that by June this year, all LOI had an inspection through Education Scotland or a review from the authority. And again, the satisfaction rates there are significantly higher than what we're seeing here. So that's parents directly experiencing our schools and establishments feeding back to us. So I would be consoled with the fact that we have data that suggests different to the household survey this is based on.
Thanks, Michael. Paul, is that okay? Okay. David?
If I can share an anecdote, somebody I know working in one of our schools in Inverclyde recently was picking up fuel and was asked where they were going to work, said they were going to work in the school. I was told, oh, that's a terrible place to work. And the response was, on what basis? If you get children there? No. Perception. Some perception for whatever reason. And if that result, if this survey is based on these perceptions, how meaningful is it anyway? What's more important is what's on the ground. And that's what we pick up is from the parents and the pupils, rather than these meaningless surveys where you can respond to anything. If I'm asked by anything by Amazon on my purchase to give a 5-star review, I always give 5 stars. It's meaningless.
See, David, your cup's always half full. I'll always give them 3 stars. Elizabeth?
Thanks. I think over the years I've spoken a lot about the kind of methodology behind the LGBF, and how do we always make sure that we're comparing like with like, and the methodology for gathering information in one authority might be different from how it's gathered in another authority for different measures. This one, it's the SNS that they're using as the source material, but if it's consistently deemed to be neither robust nor accurate across the country, then is there a way for us to feed back into the LGBF framework that it's perhaps not the best measurement to be using at all?
Ruth?
Yes, we certainly can do that, and the sample size needs to be taken into account for Inverclyde too. What I would say is there's no reliable comparators for other types of data. So satisfaction, when you want to, you can see how you're doing against yourself, but when you want to see how you're doing against the rest of the country, you do need something a bit wider. So it's probably the one that's the reason the LGBF have chosen that particular data set, because they can do comparators. What I would say is, why would things in Inverclyde be any different to other authorities? So we do have to take some cognizance of what people are telling us. And what I would say is that satisfaction levels in Inverclyde do seem to be going down. across the board. So it is something we need to keep an eye on. You know, we take the data when it's good. So we also need to take the data when it's perhaps taking a turn that we need to perhaps look at.
Elizabeth, okay.
I completely agree with that, other than that we do have other sources of data that we've talked about, like our HMIE data for actual inspections in actual school communities that do seem to be odds with it, so it's worth a questioning. And a watch, absolutely, and that's not to say that we don't accept national data sources, obviously we do, but we need to time with, you know, and if they're not, then we do, I think we've got a right to question it.
And even on the sport, I mean, on the sport facilities, it doesn't chime for what Inverclyde Leisure are saying about, you know, how people are happy with their sport and what they're providing as a service as well. So there is something about that, Elizabeth, that I agree with. Do we have anybody online? No other questions? And nobody else? And Innes, you want to?
Yeah, I mean, to me, it just sounds like the whole system can be skewed depending on who they phone up, you know, and then you'll always have a variation in statistics, you know. So I just don't know how much credence we give to all this. You know? I really don't.
And I think like everything else that we do in education, we don't look at things as a one-off. We usually look at trends. You know, trends is always the key. And you've heard the corporate director saying that, you know, we pat ourselves in the back and we get good results. So now and again, we've just got to look and say, well, is it a one-off or is there a trend there? And if there's a trend, we've got to try and do something about it. So whatever we do in education and communities, we always look at trends. Yep.
And just through you, Gavina, you know, all statistics have a health warning, you know, so we need to look at what does it say, and what we'll typically do is triangulate it with what we've seen before, what the trend data see, what the other sources say to us, what does, you know, what we're seeing on the ground. So it's never the statistics in isolation sometimes can give a different picture.
And
can I also say that, you know, last year my son went to school for the first time in Inverclyde, and it's totally exceeded my expectations, you know, and I'm not hearing any bad things from any other parents. So, I mean, that's only one school in Inverclyde, but if that is rolled out to all the schools, I think the Education Committee are doing a grand job.
Our head teachers in our schools. Yep, agree. Can we agree the paper? Thank you. Can we move to agenda item number 11? And sorry for preempting, but there is a part in that paper about Gaelic education. It was an outstanding remit to this committee, but I'll let Michael introduce this paper. Michael.
So we convenience the education update report on the overview of local and national initiatives. We see other updates from the festival authority. As traditionally started at 3.1 with the outcome of 2 recent inspections across early years. One at Gibbs Hill Children's Centre from the Cadent Inspectorate where they achieved goods across the board, and one at the Wellington Children's Centre in Greenock, which was a joint inspection, joint full inspection between Education Scotland and the Cadent Inspectorate. And in that, the outcome of that was that Education Scotland's inspection, they achieved goods across the board, but from the Cadent Inspectorate, there were 2 of the QIs where they were adequate and 2 where they were good. And as we've reported to you previously, we obviously where we dropped below good, have a plan in place now, support from the early years team to bring the service quickly back to good, and they will place a re-inspection on the Cadent Inspectorate element of the joint inspection in about a year's time, and that is being tracked as it's being implemented. Across 3.2 and 3.3, I've done my best to give you the latest update around the forum programme and the independent review, qualification and assessment. There is not a significant update here, other than in the second paragraph of 3.2, we have made mention to you before of the establishment of a centre for teaching excellence within the country, and this has been confirmed back in December as will be hosted by Glasgow University through a selection process. as I wrote this, and I think it's still the case because I haven't heard the announcement, the recruitment process for the substantive Chief Executive of Education Scotland and the Chief Inspector of the Chief Executive of Education Scotland and the Chief Inspector of Education is still underway, and that I'm not sure where we are in that process. And subsequently also has been announced the resignation of the Chief Executive of the Scottish Qualification Authority. So there's quite a lot of change going on at that level in the country at the moment. We also have 3.3, an update where, again, there is a significant amount to share with you other than the government response in relation to the qualifications. There's a link there in the first paragraph. It was published back in September. And more work has been done in relation to that, and we're still at the moment waiting for further direction on that matter. 3.4, the National Recruitment Framework for 2025 was published back in December. There's a link there to that, and we are bringing the 7 key outcomes from that into our own directorates, education service improvement planning, and that is also cascaded down into establishment planning across all of our schools and early years establishments. At 3.5, there is just a note there around developments that are ongoing around outdoor learning across the system, and an amendment bill that continues to progress through stage 1 in the Scottish Parliament. 3.6 in January, I think it was just after the last committee, the elective home education guidance from the Scottish Government was refreshed and updated. There is no significant change to that guidance, and it doesn't change the practice within the education service here in Inverclyde, but there's a link to that guidance there. 3.7, I'm giving you quite a full update on work that's ongoing nationally around equality in education. And you may note that there was an event was opened by the First Minister recently in January, and I was delighted to be present online as part of that. And further, I was very proud, given that at the end of his introductory speech, he introduced the video that we've shared with you before that was made by the pupils at Newark Primary School, the anti-racism video that was then shared with the conference. And there's a link there to share that with you. And just there's obviously a lot of ongoing work both within the local authority and nationally and in respect to the anti-racism agenda, which we remain highly committed to. And as mentioned, 3.8 was an outstanding remit specifically to outline the costs of GME education across early years, from nursery at Windhill through to primary Windhill and on into secondary, including transport and also CLD related costs. So the total cost of that was what the outstanding remit was, and that's noted at 3.8. And just further to the previous conversation around this, all I would say is that there is a national challenge around recruitment for GME staff, special staff, and I know that exists obviously here in Inverclyde, but it also exists at Glasgow Gaelic School and across the system, where the sufficiency of staff qualified and able to teach Gaelic education is certainly a challenge that we all face. After taking any questions.
Thank you, Michael. I'm going to open up for questions. I'll check online. Online. I've got Councillor Wilson. I'll bring Councillor Wilson in first and then Francesca in from the room. Councillor Wilson.
Michael, can we afford the cost of Gaelic education, not just at primary, but potentially at secondary level?
Through your convener, yes. Obviously, we've got a budget report on the table from earlier on, and we have Gaelic grant money that comes into the local authority to support the provision. The quality of the Gaelic education that we have at Windhill is strong. I know that to be the case because we have done a review at the school in the last couple of years, and it really is a strength of Windhill and within the authority, and is looked at nationally for its practice. And although we have a small number of children at Inverclyde Academy. The school's commitment to establishing GME has been fantastic, and the hope is that it will continue to develop and grow from where it is now.
David, okay?
Yeah, I wish you all the best with that one.
Okay, thanks, David. I'll bring Francesca in. Francesca.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks very much, Michael, for that report. It's really good to get those updates. I think I've just got a question really about item 3.6, the elective home education. And I know that obviously, you know, the vast majority of choices made by families to home educate are for really, really good reasons. But we know that the issue of home education did garner some national attention because of a really unfortunate case for one child. And we know that we like children coming to school and young people because it's really good. Like this committee has got a particular focus on attendance, and that's for all sorts of attainment reasons. But another part of that is because we want to have eyes on young people for safety. I'm just wondering, why has this guidance been updated in January 25? I know you're not the voice of Scottish Government here in Inverclyde, but I wondered if you could shed any light on what you think was brought it about.
Through you, convener, I can cross-check this, but my understanding is, like all guidance and policy, it goes through a cycle of review, and this was the moment at which it was to be reviewed. I mean, within Inverclyde, we have an officer assigned to elective home education who works with families at the point at which they're seeking advice or seeking to make a move to electively educate their children at home. Our whole approach is to try and support that not to be the case, to understand whether there's more that we could do to change that position and work with the families. And through the Inverclyde Child Protection Committee and through our lead child protection officer, we have fed back nationally that, you know, our desire to ensure that this policy within Scotland is robust and that it's taking place of the events that you referred to in England.
Thanks very much. Thank you.
Okay, Francesca. I have Innes.
Can I ask, can we get an idea of numbers of how many pupils in Inverclyde are home educated?
Through you, convener, I would want to check, cross-check. I don't have that at my fingertips. I can bring something back to the next committee, or I can communicate with the outside committee. But certainly, we are seeing an increase in the numbers of parents making that decision, but that is replicated nationally. We know that there's a network of officers like our own, and we know that this is on the increase nationally, linked to the overall challenges faced around attendance. I can certainly get you a figure on that to be precise.
I'll bring Ruth in first of all.
Just to build on Michael's answer, we will only know about the young people who have registered in school and then elected to leave school. If a child has never registered in school, the authority will not know they are home educated. So that's something to make the committee aware of.
Okay, can I ask, is that an obligation for parents then to contact the Scottish Government to do home education, or do you just not know about it and the children run under the radar and are not?
There would be no obligation. They're basically, as you would say, under the radar. Yes, there is no, because you don't have to request home education. You just have to request to home educate once you're in the system.
Can I ask, is it legal for parents to do that?
Yes, absolutely.
I don't know what you're thinking, Innes. I'll bring Michael in before bringing Tommy in.
And through you, convener, this is the kind of loophole that nationally exists. This is why in the English system they are seeking to find a way to create a national register that potentially close that loophole, and this is the kind of challenge that we've directed back up through the system in relation to trying to close that gap.
Okay, Innes.
Yes.
I think we all know what you're thinking. So,
just personally, I know someone who, you know, is an older adult and is in a position that they've never had an education, they can't read and write, and it's really tragic. You know, so I would hope that loophole can't be closed.
Thanks, Ines. I'll bring Tommy in, Councillor McVeigh.
Thanks, Convener. Just back to the Gaelic education. I'm supportive of the actions of taking on Gaelic education, 100%. But there are challenges in recruiting staff, and as Michael said, there are challenges all across Scotland. So, what do we do if we go another year and we don't get the staff, or another 2 years? How long do we let it drift? And if we're not getting the correct staff in place, is that going to affect children's education who are coming up through the system, going into primary, into secondary? And if that's the case, do we have a plan B to say, well, we revert back to Glasgow Gaelic School? And I know there is constraints with the numbers there. So where do we go, and how long do we let this drift? Just looking for some clarity, Convener.
Michael.
So through you, Convener, at the moment, although we don't have a teacher within Inverclyde Academy to teach Gaelic, we are accessing teaching through East Royal, which is the solution that came through the Western Isles Local Authority. So it's online teaching, and remember, the provision was never to provide Gaelic education full time within the secondary context. So in relation to the young person that is at Inverclyde Academy at the moment, that has been our solution, whilst we attempt to continue to recruit for a teacher, and it is we are being, I can't go into details because it would start to expose individual cases through recruitment, but we're actively seeking to support staff either to train, to teach Gaelic, or to work with those who are in the system who have a degree of Gaelic to take the qualifications that they require. So a lot of time and effort is going into trying and support staff existing staff potentially become teachers of Gaelic, as well as promoting what we're doing with the authority to try and attract applications. But we do have access to the national solution, which is helpful. But I am aware that even nationally, the East Royal school, if you like, the online school themselves are finding challenges in relation to qualified staff to deliver that. So we're part of, I think, a wider issue.
Yeah, okay. And as far as is it working just now, again, comfortable with what they're doing just now? And I appreciate it's not an ideal solution, but I appreciate you're trying hard, Michael. But fairly satisfied with what they're getting now. Because if they are, that's fine. I'm just looking for some background to see how a sort of plan B or plan A is working at the moment.
So through you, Convener, I mean, what I would say to you is that there is a vacancy within Windhill as well, and we are again being as creative as we can to utilise the staffing that we have in order to ensure that the provision continues to be as it should be, and the hope is that we will be able to recruit going forwards. There are Gaelic probationers coming through the system. We've bid for them before. We weren't successful last year. We're attempting again this year. But both the heads and staff, principal teachers, for example, are linked to Windhill and Inverclyde Academy, staying in close contact with parents. And nothing has come to me, but that's not to say that there are not conversations and reassurances being given by staff to parents about what the solutions are at the moment as we try to secure staff.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Tommy. Ines, we want to come back in?
Yeah, I was going to ask, you were saying that the Gaelic teachers aren't teaching Gaelic full time as such. Is other opportunities to share staff with other authorities that teach Gaelic, and and maybe Glasgow, people who can do that. I mean, I don't know about. And also, another question is, do the children who are learning Gaelic, do they get as a council, ever arrange trips, sort of weekends or time away to Gaelic speaking areas where they can become immersed in Gaelic?
So through you, Convener, I mean, there's a lot in that question, Councillor Nelson, in respect to Gaelic education, and the committee been through obviously the proposal to establish the provision, but essentially to try and pick off the questions you've answered, when we were setting up the provision and we had an options appraisal process, we had and still have an advisory board linked to the parent groups at Windhill, principally. We looked to potentially consider sharing staff between ourselves, for example, in Duluth Grammar, we have a secondary GME provision. And it's still not without the realms of possibilities that those conversations could happen again. But generally speaking, where there are gaps, that most local authorities are relying on Eastwell as a solution, as a national online remote solution. It's not in-person teaching, it's not the same as that, but it does solve that problem. When we put the provision together and the proposal we put forward, the young people that would attend into the provision only have a small percentage of their curriculum taught through Gaelic, whereas in primary it is done through full immersion. In secondary is a different model, so they would be taught and have the opportunity to meet with a Gaelic speaking teacher on a regular basis through registration classes, for example. We taught Gaelic as a subject, so that actual proficiency in Gaelic continues, and on the basis that that teacher is potentially dual qualified, so they speak Gaelic, but they could be a history teacher, or they could be a chemist, whatever, then potentially that other subject could be taught through Gaelic. And at the moment, potentially we're not maybe able to offer that in its fullest sense, but we are able to access teaching online. In respect of trips, etc., I mean, not all, but a lot of our youngsters are speaking Gaelic at home. They're coming from Gaelic-speaking families, but not all are. And the children, sort of like Win Hill, will go on a residential trip, but not necessarily to a Gaelic-speaking area. But the cultural element of Gaelic is a big part of the curriculum offering that's in place in terms of music and traditions linked to Gaelic culture as part of the curriculum offer at Win Hill and now in private academy as well.
Okay, Ennis, so full answer. Thank you. Pam, would you like to come in?
Thanks, Convener. Yeah, I just wanted to go back to the discussion about home educated children who are not required to be notified to the authority. And I just wanted to make the point that the proposals for the named person for every child in Scotland would have identified these children, but it gets right to the heart of, you know, how intrusive / supportive, you know, the state should be, and that was deemed to be too intrusive in private family life. I just wanted to make that point. You know, we had the opportunity, but it failed because it was deemed too intrusive. And now there are children who are not known about. Thank you.
Right, thanks, Pam. I'm wanting to see, that was really just a comment,
Yes,
wasn't
yeah,
it?
sorry.
Yeah, it was just highlighting the named person. Yeah, okay. I can't see anything online. Can we agree the paper?
Agreed.
Thank you. Can we go to the next agenda item, number 12, and that is phase 1, the review for Play for All. I'll get Ruth to introduce the paper and then we'll hand it over to Yvonne.
Yes, thank you, Convener. Yvonne is the expert on this area and what's going on about. So to be clear, this is phase 1 of the review of out of school childcare and holiday childcare service. And to remind members that this work was ongoing before the budget process, and I realise, you know, there's money being put for ASN provision through the budget process, but this paper does not address that issue. This paper is aimed at addressing the priority for places at the out-of-school care service and the holiday provision and how they dovetail with each other. And that was in response to a complaint that the service received about the priorities being unfair. So we upheld that complaint because when we looked at it, we agreed that it wasn't fair, and we are looking to change the priorities for allocation, particularly of the holiday childcare service, so it's not so reliant on attendance at the out-of-school, after-school service. I will hand over to Yvonne, who will talk through. I realise it's a very technical paper, and she'll perhaps talk through some of the issues.
Yvonne, over to you.
Okay, through you, Convener. So the purpose of this paper is to provide feedback from the recent Play for All out-of-school childcare and holiday childcare service consultation that took place in January 2025. The consultation was in response to a parent complaint regarding the criteria for how places were allocated for the Play for All out-of-school childcare and holiday childcare service. It's important to highlight that the consultation did not include the Play for All Summer Club, as this will be included in a wider planned service review. A questionnaire was issued to parents from Craig Marlock, Stella Maris and All Saints Language Base. And if approved, the feedback from the consultation will be implemented from the summer 2025 and onwards, also incorporating any new applications for the August 2025 term. Committee are asked to agree the proposed changes in Appendix 2 and agree that they will be implemented for all new applications for the August 2025 term and for the holiday care childcare provision in the summer of 2025. You will see in 3.3 in the paper, Inverclyde Council have 2 out-of-school childcare services, one which is in Vine Street for mainstream children and one which is in Play for All, which is based in Craig Marlock School for children with additional support needs. You will see in 3.3 and 3.6 of the paper that Play for All offers 2 services. The core service, which is Play for All out of school childcare service, and the holiday childcare service, which is specifically to facilitate out of school childcare to parents who meet the criteria that they have been offered a specialist ASN placement allocated by the ASN Forum and in employment, education or training for employment. Therefore, its core purpose is childcare. Play for All also operates a summer club, and although it still has the criteria for attendance that is linked to a specialist school placement through the ASN Forum, this service is not designed to accommodate childcare, so therefore there is no criteria out with attending the specialist service. As you will see in 3.4 of the paper, that the summer service was not part of the consultation, however feedback received will be used as part of the wider service review moving forward. Play for All out of school childcare service and holiday childcare service operate over term time, 1 week at Easter and October week and 4 weeks over the summer. You will see in 3.6 and 3.7 of the paper, Play for All is registered with Care Inspectorate to accommodate a maximum of 15 children at any one time. While this is the maximum capacity, depending on the assessed needs of the children who attend this service, this may result in capacity being reduced. All places are allocated to Play for All out of school childcare and holiday childcare service in line with Inverclyde's current out of school childcare policy as shown in Appendix 1. You will see in 3.10 of the paper for the out of school childcare service there is 1 priority criteria which has 3 bands. In 3.11 of the paper you will see that for holiday childcare service there are 2 priority criteria with 3 bands in each. Priority 1 also prioritises parents who currently access the service. Due to several complaints and one which was upheld regarding how places were allocated and prioritised, a decision was taken to consult parents on the admission and allocation criteria for the Play for All service, the childcare and holiday childcare service. In January, a questionnaire was issued to seek parents' feedback on the current policy and how places were allocated and banded. 360 parents were issued with the questionnaire, which 24 responded. 54% of parents felt that the current allocation criteria was fair and equitable. However, the other 46% of parents felt it was not and had the opportunity to provide further detail on their responses. You will see in 3.15 of the paper that was around the current banding of applications for respite and priority for children dependent on their needs. The consultation further highlighted parents' confusion over the purpose of the service, which is to facilitate childcare, and some of the responses from parents and carers reflected this, particularly around the need for respite and places allocated based on children's needs and not parents' working status. So while these were not in the scope of this review, this information will be taken forward as we review and design services moving forward. Further feedback recommended that the current criteria for prioritising parents who already attended the term time service was unfair and having a direct impact on other parents getting access to the service or ever getting a place at all. And it was resulting in parents remaining on the waiting list for long periods of time, often never getting a place. So for example, if your child attended the service during term time, they received a priority for a place at Easter, October and the summer. This meant if you didn't already have a place, you had a very slim chance of getting a place at other times like Easter, October, summer periods. And this also resulted in the service really only being accessed by parents at Craig Marlock, as they were the only children who attended the service during term time. This change would provide an equal chance for any eligible parent to receive a place aligned with the spaces available. A change to the criteria would also result in less parents on the waiting list for holiday childcare service and would better align with 13% of parents who requested that parents on the waiting list were given a priority, as this change would reduce waiting lists and provide more access to the service. Other feedback from the consultation was similar to some of the current priorities in banding, for example, priority for lone and two-parent working families, so there was no real change required here. Parents also identified the length of time that children had been on the waiting list, the number of people in the household, and priority for the core purpose of the service, which is to facilitate childcare for employment, education or training for employment parents. Further feedback showed that parents did not highly rate the criteria for when one parent in a family was working. As the service is specifically designed to facilitate childcare, the recommendation is that this priority criteria is removed. This also aligns with the complaint that had previously been upheld. The purpose of the service. Aligned with this purpose, there would only be two priorities, 1A and 1B, which would allocate places to lone parents and two-parent families. The recommendation would also be that the current priority 1C and 2C criteria where only one parent works would be removed. The recommendation would also be to remove the criteria which prioritises parents who already attend the service for holiday childcare summer service, which is October week in the summer, to ensure that all parents who are eligible can apply. A further recommendation would be to remove the criteria that aligns parents' working patterns to the holiday care service for the summer only. And lastly, as planned, we recommend a review of the out-of-school childcare service policy and completion of the review of the Play for All service. Thank you, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Dawn. That was quite comprehensive and quite technical as well. I'm going to go to Ruth and Michael first of all and see if you've got anything you wish to add at this point in time. I'll just take questions first and then take it from there. Okay. I'll go to Elizabeth first. Elizabeth.
Thank you. I might want to come back in with a second question later, but this is specifically about the fact that this is a kind of phase one of something that we're trying to do, and I think it is good that we're addressing an unfair anomaly here that's been identified. It's been a challenge, and we've upheld it and said it's something that needs to change, and I think that's really good that we're doing that. I think there are difficulties with the fact that this is going to allow more parents, more families, more children to access this, but it's still only, there's no enhancement of capacity. It's still 15 places, so that's a kind of comment I would want to put out there. I understand about registration, etc., but we know that there's a larger number of young people with additional support needs. We know that the number going into primary one this year is far higher. So this is phase one, and I'll come back to my phase two stuff later on. But if this is good to fill this anomaly, but in terms it's not enhancing capacity as such, is my first comment. And the second thing, I think probably I would have to express some issues with the questionnaire, just in terms of the response. It would seem that the numbers who've responded almost entirely equate to the people who've ever had any sniff at an access to the provision, and therefore everybody else who was in the kind of the Venn diagram of the ASM parents and the ASM schooling provision felt, well, I've never had access to this, so I've got no comment to make, and I think that's an unfortunate position, because there's perhaps information that would have helped with future developments, etc. They've not been able to get. So I'm expressing a difficulty with the no enhancement in capacity, and I'm expressing concerns about the questionnaire. But I might want to come back in later if that's okay.
No, that's fine. Ruth.
Yes, so the enhancement of capacity, one of the issues for us is finding the appropriately qualified staff. Looking at the whole ASM provision over the summer, we are registered as Yvonne said, for 15 people with a care commission, and that's our sort of limit for registration, given the needs of the young people. However, the single issue we have is the qualifications of the staff of people who are willing to work consistently over the 4 weeks. People say that they know somebody who would be willing to work, and I absolutely, ruth.binks@inverclyde.gov.uk, give them my email address, because there will be nobody happier than me if we know that we have got staff who are qualified to be able to meet the needs of these young people and will look after them. And that is our single factor. If I end up making 100 phone calls tomorrow night, I am happy with that, because that's what we need to be able to run the service. It's the staffing. So the enhancement is linked to the capacity of the service to be able to meet the needs of the young people with the staffing, and I think we've always highlighted that. The second one about the questionnaire, yes, and when we sent out the questionnaire, there was an option just to send it out to Craigmallock parents, because actually Craigmallock parents are the ones who use the after school provision. And you can't use an after-school provision if you're 10 miles, 5 miles away. It's not realistic. But we had to send it out to all the parents because it will actually make a difference to them. Although they don't attend the after-school provision, the whole point is we're changing it to the fact you don't have to, so you can attend the holiday care. So I can understand that a lot of people would think, well, hang on, this has nothing to do with me because I don't use Play for All, and I absolutely understand that. We've had people saying perhaps we looked to see the criteria of, the 24 people responded, and we know of 24 people who were involved with the service. So then we did sense check our questionnaire to double check that it went out to everybody, because we were disappointed with the response rate. So we have checked that, and they did go out. We can see 119 have been opened. And if anybody didn't get the questionnaire, I would urge them to get in contact with their school, because it means that their email address is incorrect. So we were disappointed by the response. However, this is phase 1. We got a lot of rich information from phase 1, which perhaps is not what we intended to get, but we heard what the parents are saying, and we are listening. We realise that this is not about necessarily childcare linked to the parents' working patterns. It's about the fact that 6 weeks over a holiday is a long time, and it's linked to respite, and we absolutely know that. But we have to manage this proportionately with what is safe to manage. So this is the first stage, because this was an anomaly. We absolutely agreed with the parents saying, I'm never going to get the summer place because I don't meet the criteria, or I'm still on the waiting list for an after school place. So this is stage 1, but we are committed to making the best of the resources we have. We know that the budget process has put money for ASN for summer provision. We've got a meeting next week to look at holistically across the services, involving HSCP, involving everybody we know about what that provision may look like. But I reiterate, it is the qualifications and the registration and people who are willing to work over the summer holidays that is really a limiting factor for us. If you know of anybody who's willing to do that, and we keep putting out, putting out adverts, and does it go to everybody? Please, if the Greenock Telegraph listening to this, put my email out. I would really be absolutely delighted to hear from people who are willing to support the young people, because if we can get that, then we can begin to look at what the provision's like.
Thanks, Ruth. You went back in just now, Liz? Yep.
Thank you. Simply because Ruth has kind of mentioned the phase 2 and everything. I know this paper was about the phase 1, and I'm fully aware of that, so I wanted to respect the fact that that's what the paper was about. But if we've got a phase 2, just a couple of things that I please, I guess, when I think a good thing to do, and Ruth, I've kind of touched on this, having conversations with the children's disability team and social work who have the cohort of children who are known on the books, if you like, and actually looking at the needs profile of those children, and then developing things on the basis of that, I think would be a good thing to do. Another thing, we've had regular meetings with a number of ASN parents over a while now, and that's something I said to them yesterday, was something that we say quite a lot in terms of the promise, in terms of looked after children, is that nothing about me without me. And I feel strongly about that in terms of this as well. We've got families there who have got clear needs that they feel haven't been met, and are desperate to have conversations. So make sure that, and I know that I'm asking this, but I know that it's meaningful discussion, and nothing about these families without them being involved in the discussion. And I was going to ask for a troll for staffing, because obviously staffing is consistently been something that's been mentioned as the issue. But if we can all do a collective troll on that, then that those were the kind of phase 2 points that we wanted to raise.
You want to comment on that? Is it? No, you okay?
No, absolutely.
You okay? Yeah. Okay, you should take that point. Pam, you want to come in?
Thanks, Convener. Yes, I've been asked just to clarify the timescales. I mean, it's possibly just me. Are the priority changes going to be implemented for this summer?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So that's
not Easter.
Not Easter, but for summer, and then the out of school that from August term. Is that right?
Yeah. So just to clarify, after 4 weeks, so as part of Play for All out of school childcare and holiday care, we have the term time service, we have October and Easter, which it won't be implemented for Easter because it's too tight a turnaround. However, we also have the 4 weeks at the summer, and that will be implemented. That change to policy allocation will be implemented for parents applying for places for the summer, which means if the priorities for children who are OD10 service, that would not be the priority for summer. But to be clear, that's for Play for All out of school care and holiday care service. It's not for the summer club, which is the...
Yeah, so yes. Thank you. Thanks very much. Thank you.
But what I've actually said, Pam, what I've said to Ruth and Yvonne and Michael is, we really need to call them 2 different names. If we're talking about 2 different things, talk about them 2 different names. So, because we do get them confused, and I get them confused sometimes. They say what we're talking about. So quite clearly we should know exactly what we're talking about when we're talking about these. So I would like to call them different names so nobody's confused of exactly what we're talking about. I'll bring Sandra in if that's okay. Pam, is that okay? Yeah, I'll bring Sandra in. Sandra?
Thanks, Convener. Can I just say thanks to Ruth? She has clarified a couple of questions that I had and laid some concerns to rest there, because I had queries or comments or concerns about the questionnaire and some of the suspicions that I had, and she's addressed that as well. However, I think she's right in that some of the patients didn't think it didn't get them. Some of the parents and grandparents that we talked to yesterday hadn't seen the questionnaire, and it may be that you say that they need to check their emails. However, there seems to be about 160 plus that didn't receive it or see it, according to your investigations into that. So is there another way that can be communicated to them?
No. Ruth, sorry, Sandra, can they get Ruth to come in there? Because I think she's for a point of accuracy.
So just to say that we can when we send out anything through CMIS, we can see who's opened them. So 197 people opened that email. 114 were delivered. 47 clicked, 25 were a duplicate, and some bounced back because the people had changed their email. So when people are saying they didn't get the email, we can see if it's actually been opened. Right. So what I would say to the parents who didn't get the email, what they must do, because this matters for everything else as well, is get in touch with their school. Because it means we have the wrong email address for you. It means nothing else will be getting through. And we understand that there can be typos. Sometimes people change email addresses. But what people must do is get in touch with their school and update their details.
Right, so that number is a lot lower than I thought then. The other, I mean, you said the other thing a lot of parents didn't really think it applied to them because they'd been refused it in the future. And I know it's disappointing when you put out a questionnaire, consultation, survey or whatever, and you get a low return. And this page 165 kind of shows that as well. So in the future, is there anything that we can do to make sure, apart from what we've discussed now, that we do get a bigger return? Because it's not a survey just out to a population where it might not apply to loads of them. This type of consultation applies to practically everybody that you put it out to.
So, so a couple of points there through you, Convener. First is Yvonne and I wrote a covering letter to explain why people were getting the survey. Now, it was quite technical, quite difficult to explain, but we hoped we'd done the job to say, please take the time to fill in the survey because this matters in the future. But we are cognizant of the fact it's been a low turnout. We've got some very, very robust feedback, I would have to say. But when we go into phase 2, we will try to reach out again. And if we've all got links within the system here, and encouraging people to fill it in as we look to follow up. We will take quantitative data, but we will also take some qualitative data as well. We need to listen to people. We need to find out what will make a difference. It may be that it's not a one-size-fits-all solution. So we are in listening mode. But this was basically, we needed to undertake a survey so that all parents who may be adversely affected by this are also aware of the change we're taking forward.
Okay, Sandra, you want to come back in?
No, that's great.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sandra. I'm going to bring Francesca in. Francesca.
Thanks very much, Chair. Yeah, and thanks, I suppose, to Yvonne specifically, as you say, it's a really technical report, Ruth, and about a very specific element of the provision, and it's not necessarily, or it may indeed turn out to be related to the wider provision and the budget process. So I think obviously it's a really important issue, and there's a really important focus on it. And I think, like Councillor Robertson saying that she's been speaking to some parents over a period of time that have obviously been in touch. I know Councillor Reynolds maybe alluded to a meeting yesterday and speaking to some parents. So and I get that. I think the concerns about the response rate are valid, and I think anybody who's a parent knows that with the best will in the world, there's a chance that you miss that all-important email or that all-important paper questionnaire, and that's not even going into the fact that as a parent of a child with additional support needs or multiple children with additional support needs, then the burden and the challenges in your life are so much more things that you have to look at. So I think those concerns are really valid. So I'm just thinking, as we move into the future phases, just some things that as you do always, I suppose, looking at getting the consultation if that's the appropriate way, but I suppose just a request for maybe meetings at schools, which again I know are really hard to reach parents with children with additional support needs. Working in a school like that myself, I know that the parent partnership in that school or schools for children with ASN is not going to be necessarily the best attended because you've got so many other draws on your time. But I think that request is coming out loud and clear to do everything we can to meet and to reach as many parents as we can, whether that's meetings at schools. I know we talk about working with the ASN parent and carer group and just looking at what we can do to make sure no one's left unturned, because I think we want to know what as many parents as possible think. I think we want, and we know that there are parents who've got the opportunities to be more vocal about that, but we want to make sure we're capturing a range of opinions. So yeah, I think I'm sure Ruth and Michael and everybody involved have heard that loud and clear, and appreciate also that call, because I know that's something when I've spoken to yourself about that, Ruth and Michael, that staffing related issue is really the thing that is one of the major barriers, and I know we know that, and we're looking at that, and Ruth's made that really clear appeal there, but we do need to look deeper as well and see what it is that we can do, if there's anything that we can do to make that to take that barrier away. Okay, thanks.
Okay. I'm looking to see, I can't see anybody else in. I think it was a good conversation in this. Phase one, I think Ruth probably put it the best on listening mode. There is a budget there, whether or not we look to increase capacity, make the cake bigger to ensure that rather than just slicing it in different ways. However, we know the problems regarding that. Ruth has already highlighted that totally. We know partnership with HSCP might be key for this. Looking at external people might be key. I think from taking from this, our education authorities in listening mode, Yvonne's done a tremendous amount of work in this. And I think it's a case of waiting to see what options that we get as a committee when it comes back to us as well, knowing that round this table, we're all probably singing off the same hymn sheet type of thing. So with that, can we agree the paper? Thank you. Thanks very much. Move to agenda item number 12. Sorry, I've done it. 13, sorry, which is the bereavement change and loss guidelines. And I'll ask Michael to introduce the paper. Michael.
So through you, convener, this is the second bereavement change and loss guidelines for the education service. These have been in for quite a number of years, established in 2019, and as part of the ongoing cycle of review of policy and guidelines. This set of guidelines has come up for review. So the purpose of the report is to share the document with you. There are no significant changes required for guidelines, and the policy has been adapted to be in line with the new format that we're using across the council. So I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Michael. Any questions? I can't see any in the chamber, and I can't see any online. Can we agree the paper?
Agreed.
Thank you. We will move to agenda item number 14, which is the child protection guidelines. Again, Michael.
So again, you can similarly, this is the set of guidelines we took to committee a year ago. We undertook to keep them under annual review just in relation to the significant need of them, and we align to national policy and local policy through the Child Protection Committee, and these are the services in set guidance for schools. Again, since we presented to you, there's been no significant change to national policy or local policy, but they are kept under review, and possibly by the time we come back to you next year, there will be changes to them, because this is an area where we are ever learning and considering individual cases or identification of trends and themes, and then there may well be some additional changes when we come back in a year's time. But at this point in time, there are no changes, so we're just asking the committee to note the guidance.
Okay.
Thanks, convener. Throughout the paper, guidelines and procedures are used interchangeably. For me, they're not interchangeable. Guidelines allow for deviation, procedures don't. I have a particular background in this stuff, so I don't think it's helpful that they're used. There's guidelines here, there's procedures down there. To me, they're not the same thing. This is written as if one is equivalent to the other. I'm afraid for me, they're not equivalent, and I would want them all to be called procedures. That's what I would argue for. Thank you.
Any comment, Michael?
Well, I mean, we certainly we discussed this, I think, at pre-agenda, and made reference to the point, because my memory serves me correctly, you raised this the last time. However, as you'll see, we've settled on guidance. We do expect them to be followed, and they do link through to national policy, and through also linking through to the local policies and guidance that we have on child protection, and we audit against everything that's contained within this. So at the moment, they remain as guidance or guidelines that support all of our establishments to follow the national policy.
Thanks. I know what I've made.
I think I've
made the point before.
Yeah.
I mean, I got rid of guidelines nearly 20 years ago. And I'm sorry to say that if things go wrong, the fact that you've got guidelines becomes a very critical point. But I've made my point. I can't do any more. Thank you.
Oh, thanks, Pam. And with that, with Pam's not against it, but with Pam's comments, can we agree the paper?
Agreed.
Thank you. Can we move to the supplementary agenda, and hopefully people will understand why I accepted it. It wasn't too late. It came in just shortly after the main agenda, but I'll let Ruth introduce it.
Yes, so thank you for your forbearance in doing this. Where the qualities officer has been seconded out, so we're short-staffed here. So this is, members will know that we as a council produce our quality mainstreaming report, but Education Authority has to produce its own. So this is the report for 2025, but also we're asking for approval of the quality outcomes for 25 to 29. One slight change in the influences. Previously, we had improved the education attainment of Black and ethnic minority pupils. What we're seeing is Black and ethnic minority pupils who've applied don't tend to have a huge attainment gap, but we do need to make sure that they are achieving as much as they possibly can. So we change that to improve the achievements for Black and minority ethnic pupils. We went back to consultation on this, and there were 74 individuals responded, and that's in 3.11. Happy to take any questions, thoughts, or comments.
Thank you, Ruth. Questions? I've got one from Elizabeth. Elizabeth.
Thanks, Camilla. This is a question where I could end up being hugely embarrassed. Can I ask where the equal pay statement is in the paper? Because it's titled that part of this is an equal pay statement, and I've looked and I've looked and I've looked, and I can't see it. And I'm just wondering if it might be me. It's been me in the past.
Ruth.
Can I take that one away?
Thank you.
Ruth will take that away in about a discussion with Warner, I think.
Thank you. Thanks.
It is reported corporately, but it's not in here, and it should be.
It should be.
It is reported corporately, but I think we should also have it in here because we said it's in here as well.
Okay, so technically wise, can we agree the paper without it being there, or what should we do? Or what guidance from yourself, Ruth?
I think we can agree the paper subject to the statement, and I'm sure that we have the same statement across the whole council, and it'll just be that. But I need to check my facts on that.
It's okay. So we agree the paper subject.
I'm just glad it's not me.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Have we got David? Sorry, David.
Yeah, I'm going to raise something here, and I suspect that I've raised it before, and I think I've got a good idea what the answer is. But I've been approached by a lot of senior staff, particularly in non-dominational schools, and they feel that in terms of equality, in terms of applying for senior positions in Roman Catholic schools, they can't do it. But equally, senior staff in Roman Catholic schools can apply for senior jobs in non-denominational schools. So the people who have approached me have said, why is this? You should raise it. And I've now raised it. Thank you very much, convener.
Thank you, David. David, you probably know the answer to it. If you want Ruth to reiterate it, I'm sure she can.
Yes, that would help.
So through you, convener, so anyone applying for a position in the Catholic school must have approval from the Catholic Church.
Thank you, Ruth.
That's the same answer you gave me 5 years and 10 years ago.
At least I'm consistent, councillor.
David, you have your answer, which you were probably expecting anyway, and I'll let Pam come in. Pam.
Thanks very much, convener. I mean, my question about 3.6, but it applies in others as well. Why the nuns and the non-blacks aren't put together? I mean, if you put the, because if you put the none and the null blanks together, that's the biggest group. But I mean, if someone puts, is it assumed that if someone puts none, they're kind of, you know, strongly of no religion, whereas null blanks are, well, I'm not very sure or I'm not interested. I really don't understand it. Thank you.
Ruth will bring clarity to the situation. Ruth?
No, I could probably just share your pain, I would have to say.
Right.
So when we report on equalities against set criteria that we so when we're using the terms, then that's how we have to report. It doesn't always match what we're even asking people as well. You'll see we've got no English people working in Inverclyde Council, you know, but that, and so it doesn't always match. It's because we have to report on this is the language we used to report on. But I share your pain about it.
Thanks very much. Thank you.
Okay, Pam. No, I can do with more English people, but so of your calibre. Right? Do we have any other questions? No, can I agree with the report?
Right.
Can I thank everybody very much for their attendance today and for their input, especially with regard to Play for All. It was a good session, so thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody.